Good afternoon, girls. I hope you all are aware we're doing a third chapter. So you all know we've completed a few topics in the Zoom class. So now let's move on to your next topic, which is principles of internal control monitoring. Now, in your principles of internal control monitoring, you have main principles of internal control monitoring, which are as follows. So first one is ongoing monitoring. Now, what is this ongoing monitoring? Basically, here, this ongoing monitoring is a process which will enable the management to determine whether internal control over financial reporting is present and whether it is functioning. Here, you will identify whether there is control over financial reporting and whether this particular financial reporting control is functioning at present or not. Second one, moving on to your next one, you have separate evaluations. So in your separate evaluation of all the 5 internal control components. We've studied what are the 5 internal control components, right? So to name a few, you have your control environment, you have risk assessment, you have control activities, information and communication, along with monitoring. These are your internal control components. So what this basically does is, here you will have separate evaluation for all the 5 internal control components, which will enable the management to determine the effectiveness of internal control over the financial reporting. Okay, so now third one is reporting deficiencies. What happens in this reporting deficiencies is basically, here internal control deficiencies are identified. Okay, whatever internal control deficiencies are there, those are identified, and these deficiencies are communicated in a timely manner. Okay, it is communicated in a timely manner to the parties who are taking corrective action. Okay, it is communicated to those parties who are taking who are responsible for taking corrective action, and also to the management and the board as appropriate. So basically, here you are communicating to the top management as well as to the parties who are involved. Okay, now next you have ongoing monitoring. Now, what are the principles of internal Okay, so now let's look into your first principle, that is ongoing monitoring. Now, ongoing monitoring is basically, as I told you all in the beginning, it is a process which enables the management to determine whether the internal control over financial reporting is present and functioning. Okay, now under this, what you have to know is basically, here it is, this ongoing monitoring is looking into the extent to which the personnel is carrying out the day-to-day activities. Okay, what are they looking into? What extent to which the people are carrying out the activities on a day-to-day basis. Now, second one is generally integrated information with internal and external parties, periodic comparison, feedback to the management, and effectiveness of internal audit activities. Moving on to your second principle, you have separate evaluation. Now, separate evaluation of all the 5 internal control components, okay, which enable the management to determine the effectiveness of internal control over the financial reporting. Here, what you have to look into is basically the scope and frequency of separate evaluation of internal control systems, appropriateness and logically of the evaluation process and methodology. What is the appropriateness? You have to look into the logical evaluation, okay, of whatever process you're using, and what is the method you are using, and appropriateness of level of documentation, whether everything is documented appropriately, whether it is documented in a hierarchical way. Everything will be looked into in this principle. Next one, you have reporting deficiencies. Under your reporting deficiencies in internal control, here all the deficiencies are identified in a timely manner to the parties responsible for taking corrective actions. Here, why this is done is basically, you do not want to know the deficiencies at a later stage. The faster and the earlier you know these deficiencies. Suppose, for example, you commit an error. Okay, suppose you're passing a journal entry, so there is a duplication of entry. So it's better to identify at the beginning than to finish the entire process and identify in a later stage, right? So it is always good to identify deficiencies after each and every stage. And here, after identifying these deficiencies, this the parties who are responsible for this will take corrective actions. Okay, here existence of the mechanism for capturing and reporting identified internal control deficiencies, and also here it will enhance the appropriateness of reporting protocols, okay, and follow-up actions. You will be able to give timely advice as to what has gone wrong, and you will be able to give them protocols and tell them what is going wrong and what is not, what measures you have to take, and you will also give them solutions as to how you need to solve this problem and how you need to avoid this particular error in the future. Okay, now next you have now next topic is computer systems control. Okay, computer system control, as you all know, is an information system. Okay, now information system here has become an integral part of the day-to-day activity in our lives. Okay, now moving on to your next topic, you have computer system controls. In your computer system controls, you all know that information system has now become an integral part of day-to-day activities in our life, right? Because now organizations are relying more on technology for their jobs, which they have accomplished. Now, as there are, as you know, the usage is increasing, there are also various threats which are associated to it, and these threats also increases with the usage. Okay, therefore the use of right controls make it imperative and have the right internal control. So the right manner in which you can use this particular thing will enhance the effectiveness and also will reduce the threats and risk which are associated to the high usage of the information system. Okay, so now why is there a need for control and audit of information system is basically the first one, organization cost of data loss. Okay, every organization, as we all know, they will have certain amount of data which will be confidential. So if they do not take into consideration proper measures, they will tend to lose out on their data, which will be a threat to their organization. Okay, now incorrect decision making. What happens in incorrect decision making? As we all know, decision making is an integral part of the organization. You need to plan out your policies effectively and you need to take decisions. If decisions are not taken properly, you will not be able to proceed with any activity in the organization. Next, you have cost of computer abuse. As you all know, there is a lot of threat and virus which is involved, and this can corrupt the entire data and can also spoil your computer system, and in order to repair it and all of that, for its maintenance you will incur cost. So in order to avoid all of this, you need to control. Okay, you need to take control for the information system. Value of computer, hardware, software and personnel. Okay, in your value of computer, software, hardware, software and personnel, you have critical resources. These are basically a critical resource of the organization. Okay, because this has a credible impact on the infrastructure and the business competitiveness. Next, you have high cost of computer error. High cost of computer error here. Okay, here basically you, as you all know, various businesses will perform critical processes and activities. Okay, so in the critical business process, if it is performed and if there is a data error in the entry or process, here if there is a data or the error, it will cause a greater damage. So you need to avoid all of this. Okay, next you have maintenance of privacy. Maintenance of privacy is basically, here you need to set security codes. You need to make sure that this particular device does not get corrupted and your data is not lost. Okay, and also you have controlled evolution of computer use. In your controlled evolution of computer use, what you have to do is basically, here there is a lot of technology use and reliability of complex computer systems, right, which cannot be guaranteed, and consequences can be destructive. You cannot always rely on the information technology, and when you completely rely on it, if there is any destructive activity which has happened, it could be a loss. Now next, let's move on to effects of computer system of audit. Okay, in order to cope up with the new technology here, the new technology usage in an enterprise, the auditor should be competent. Okay, when he is competent, he will provide complete independent evaluation as to whether the business process activities are recorded and reported according to established standard and criteria. Now there are two basic functions which are carried out here. Okay, first one is your changes to evidence collection. In your changes to evidence collection, you have data retention and storage. In your data retention and storage, what comes to your mind when you listen to when you hear the word data retention and storage? You are retaining the data and you are storing that particular data, right? So you have here you have client storage capacity. Okay, in this client storage capacity, it may restrict the amount of historical data retained online and readily accessible to the auditor. Whatever data is there, it is available to the auditor and it will restrict the historical data. Okay, restrict the amount of historical data. Whatever information and data is required by the auditor, only that particular information and data will be available to the auditor in order to carry out internal control and auditing. Next, you have absence of input documents. In your absence of input and documents, most of the online and system generated transactions happen without the use of any input, resulting change in the audit trail. Okay, so what happens here is basically there is no availability of the audit trail. And in computer system, audit trail may not exist only. Okay, so when it is not existing, or if it exists for a short period of time, this will cause a problem to the organization, because there will be absence of input documents if this happens. Next, you have lack of availability of output. In your lack of availability of output, the transaction processed may not produce printed hard copy or output. Okay, so you do not have a hard copy of the output which is getting generated. Next, you have audit evidence. In audit evidence, here certain transactions which are carried out will automatically and generate Okay, so your next one is audit evidence. Okay, here there are certain transactions which are generated automatically. Okay, and when the transactions are generated automatically, these transactions will not have audit evidences. Next one, you have legal issues. Okay, legal issues basically because legal issues, as we all know, as trading has been increased on internet, it is creating problems with contract, like legal jurisdiction of contract, parties to contract, etc. These are various problems which are actually created because the trading over the internet has increased. This is usually because of the technological advancement that everyone are carrying out trading throughout the internet. Okay, next you have changes to evidence evaluation. In your changes of evidence or changes to evidence evaluation, here you have system generated transaction. System generated transaction, what happens here is basically they do not provide any vision to the users when they are processed. Okay, the users do not have any vision when these particular transactions are processed, and this might lead to error. Okay, all of this will lead to error. Next one, you have automatic transaction processing. In your automatic transaction processing, it may cause problem for the auditor. Okay, because all the transactions are automatically processed. Okay, and this is not the auditor who is processing the transaction. It is there are few default transactions which will be automatically processed, which will in turn cause problems to the auditor. For example, you have a case which happened in JIT. Okay, if the stock level falls below certain unit, system automatically will start generating purchase order and send it to supplier without authorization from manager. So it is a default setting in the computer system. Okay, so for as we all looked into the example of JIT, it says in case if the stock level just falls below certain units. Okay, suppose if the stock level, the minimum stock level was 100. Okay, so suppose it falls down to a level of 50. So here the system will automatically generate purchase order and send it to the supplier. The system is sending directly to the supplier without the authorization from the manager. The system does not take any permission from the manager. It is automatically generating and sending it to the supplier. Okay, now next one, you have system error. Okay, in your system error, it means if the computer program is wrong, it will continuously give wrong output till it is connected. Okay, as we all know, if you suppose, take your phone for example. If you have switched on your suggestions in your keypad settings, okay, so suppose if you do not type the right spelling, doesn't your keypad suggest you the spelling of it? So it is similar, okay. So here it basically says, when you are taking into consideration computer program, if suppose you're entering instead of alt plus F9, if you're entering alt plus F12 or F11, if you're giving a wrong command here, it will generate a wrong output. So it is always important to give a correct output till it is connected. Next you have information system. Information system audit is basically it is the process of assessment of internal controls within its IS environment and attesting the following objectives. Here you will look into the following objectives, okay. That is asset safeguarding. So your next one is the information system audit. Information system audit is basically the process of assessment, okay, of internal controls within the information system environment and attesting the following objectives. You will also have to take into consideration the following objectives. That is safeguarding of your assets, integrity of the data, and system effectiveness. Now what is the safeguarding of asset? Here you have information system assets, okay, that have to be safeguarded to provide confidentiality, integrity, and availability. In this you have certain assets which are available online. In your information system you have certain data can be your asset, okay. So you have to make sure that it is safeguarded, and this particular thing is giving you confidentiality, integrity, and also there is availability of this particular data. Next you have data integrity. Okay, your data integrity is a fundamental attribute of the information system auditing. The importance to maintain integrity of data of an organization depends on the value of information. Whatever the data integrity is there, it completely depends on the information, completely depends on what is the value of information that the organization has, how effective it is, and what value does it hold. Next one, you have system effectiveness. Effectiveness of a system is basically evaluated by auditing the characteristics and objectives of system to meet substantial requirements, okay. Whatever it is, based on whatever information you require and what is the need, based on that, based on various requirements, the auditing characteristics and objectives are taken into consideration. And also here system efficiency is basically to optimize the use of various information system resources along with the impact of computing the environment, okay. Next you have your functions of information system auditor. Under your functions of information system auditor, you have the information system auditor is basically often the assessor of business risk, okay. He usually assesses the business risk because it relates to the use of information technology. He is assessing the risk only because that risk relates to the use of information technology to the management, okay. IT auditors also review things related to information technology systems and processes. Some of them are, okay. So what are the things they are going to assess are basically inadequate information security, inefficient use of corporate resources, ineffective information technology strategies, policies and practices, and information technology related frauds. All of these 4 things will be assessed by the auditor, okay. It will be assessed by the information system auditor. Now next let's move on to the steps, okay. In your steps you have scooping pre-audit survey, okay. Scooping pre-audit survey is nothing but here the auditor determines main area of focus, okay, and out of focus based on risk based assessment. He's assessing the risk and the areas on which there should be more focus. Next you have planning and preparation. In your planning and preparation, it basically involves how you are going to generate the audit work plan and how you are going to control the risk matrix. Next you have field work. In your field work you are gathering evidence by interviewing the staff and managers. You are also going to review your documents and observe the processes which are involved in the planning and preparation of internal control of the information system, okay. Next you have analysis. In analysis here it is basically you are involving reviewing, okay. It involves reviewing and you're trying to make sense that all the evidence gathered are supporting the documents, okay. and reporting, you are also reporting to the management after you are analyzing the entire data. Now next you have control objectives. Okay, now control objective is nothing but it basically is providing you a specific target against which you need to evaluate the effectiveness of control. It is also an effective tool, okay, of ascertaining and improving the performance. It creates both positive and negative forces to keep the organizational efforts on the track. We've also studied organizational control objectives in the previous topics. Okay, now what are the objectives are basically, what are the control objectives are basically to ensure that activities are performed in accordance with the predetermined standards. Okay, there will be a particular standard which will be set, and based on this particular standard you will be performing the activities, and there will be an actual standard which will be set, and you will measure the actual performance with the standard performance to see how far you are matching the standard performance. Then next one, to know what is happening or what actually happened in the organization. The main objective is also to know what is happening in the organization and what are the events that have already occurred and are happening in the organization. Next you have to determine the corrective action, to take corrective action. Okay, if any, in case if there is any requirement, you need to take corrective action in order to achieve the goals with minimum amount of time, effort and expense. The amount of time is, the minimum will be your expenses and the lesser will be your efforts. Next you have to coordinate the diverse activities and efforts. Okay, you have to coordinate the diverse activities. You need to allocate the resources properly and to improve the efficiency of operations by minimizing unnecessary and wasteful actions. Okay, they should enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of the operation and also reduce wastage of resources. Now next you have nature and characteristics of control. In your nature and characteristics of control, it is a dynamic process, okay, because as you know, dynamic, it means continuously changing. It involves continuous review of your standard performance. Okay, whatever the standard of performance is, you need to continuously review it, which results in corrective action. Okay, when you're continuously reviewing your performance, you will know where you are going wrong, and in case if there are any changes that need to be made, you can take corrective action. Okay, you can take corrective action that leads to changes in other functions of the management. Now your control is a continuous activity. Okay, control is your continuous activity, and control is also a function of management. Okay, it is a pervasive function. Your pervasive function means it is performed by all the managers in the organization to control the activities which are assigned to them. Okay, it is usually preventive, as the presence of control systems which will lead to minimum wastage, losses and deviations from the standard. Also over here, it is usually preventive. Okay, preventive because as the presence of control system, okay, most of the times presence of control system will lead to minimization and wastage of losses, because if there is no proper control, there will be a lot of wastage and you will tend to incur lot of losses. So when there is proper control in the organization, the loss and the wastage will be minimized. Okay, decision making or corrective actions. In your decision making and corrective action, the control will help you to take proper decisions and also corrective actions. Planning and control are closely related. Okay, yes, planning and control are closely related because they go hand in hand. Okay, planning cannot be separated from control and control cannot be separate from planning, because they are interrelated with each other. Because first, when you have to bring in control, you have to plan as to how you need to control things, and when you are controlling also, you need to keep planning for things. Next you have control procedure. Now in control procedure, there are three major steps, or the procedure includes the following. That is the assertion tested, the audit procedure and the reason for procedure. Firstly, you are going to identify the assertion which is tested. When you are identifying the assertion which is tested, here why you doing this is basically audit procedures are performed in order to test financial statement assertions. Okay, you are testing the financial statement assertion. Okay, therefore the first step in explaining the audit procedure is to identify that assertion that needs to be tested. You have to identify which assertion needs to be tested in your audit procedure. The assertion embodied. Okay, the step one is to identify the assertion which has to be tested. Okay, there are various assertions in the financial statement, and the audit procedures are performed in order to test the financial statement assertions. Okay, this also explains as to how you need to identify the assertion and how you need to test a particular assertion. It could be in the following forms. First one will be your completeness. In your completeness, it means that all the transactions have been recorded in the financial statements. Okay, you are checking whether all the transactions have been recorded in the financial statements, which include assets, liabilities, equity, interest. Example, capital and reserves and other disclosures have been included in the financial statements. You need to check if all of this are included in the financial statements. Next one will be your occurrence. Now, occurrence in the assertion basically means the transactions and the events that have occurred and whether they have been recorded in the organization's records. Okay, next one, you have your value and allocation. Valuation and allocation is basically nothing but the items that have been included in the financial statements, whether they are appropriate amounts according to the company policy, whether they are relevant to the company policy, whether the financial statements are whether the financial statements and reporting framework is relevant, and also the allocation and valuation adjustments required have been made, and financial and other information is disclosed fairly. Okay, you should also see whether this particular valuation and allocation information has been, all the financial statements have been disclosed fairly or not. Next one, you have classification and understandability. Okay, financial information is appropriately presented and disclosed. Okay, you are preparing the financial information appropriately and you are presenting it. You are disclosing the information. You are expressing the information clearly because you want to make the information understandable to the users. Next one you have is accuracy. In your accuracy, it means that amounts and other data relating to the transaction. Now, what is the financial statement? Whether the financial statements are accurate, whether it is reliable, how many times has it been appearing, and what is the source from which this particular information has been taken. Next one is your right and obligation. In your right and obligation, it is basically the entity that has the right to its assets. Okay, whether it is a free to, the entity has a right to either own the asset or to dispose the particular asset. Okay, it is also obliged to pay off the liabilities that are shown in the financial statement of the financial position. Okay, next one you have existence. In your existence, what is happening is basically it is the existence of the assets and liabilities, also including your equity interest, that are physically present or belong to the entity on the reporting date. Whether all the assets and liabilities are actually present in the organization which are included in your financial report. Okay, whether there is any duplication, you have to identify all of that. Whether there is any duplication, whether all the entries have been taken into proper consideration or not, you need to identify whether it is actually existing or not. Next, lastly, you have cutoff. What is happening in cutoff is basically that means the transactions and events that have been recorded in correct accounting period. Okay, it basically means all the transactions that have actually been recorded correctly in your correct accounting period. For example, if goods are delivered prior to year end, they are included in cost of goods sold and not in inventory, because if the goods wouldn't have been actually delivered prior to the year end, it would have been included in inventory, but as it is delivered to the prior year end, it is included in the cost of goods sold. Now next, let's move on to your step 2. Step 2 is identifying the audit procedure. Okay, you will identify your audit procedure. Okay, in simple words, it can be told as AEIOU. Now, what does A stand for? A basically stands for analytical procedure. In your analytical procedure, here it is used throughout the audited procedure. Analytical procedures are those procedures which are actually used throughout the audit process, and they are also conducted for the following primary and secondary purposes. Okay. Now, for the primary purposes, you have your risk assessment to direct attention to higher risk areas. Okay. Whatever the higher risk areas are, you are assessing the risk by determining the nature of risk, what is the time at which the risk has appeared, and what is the extent of audit procedures. Next, you will have substantive testing. In your substantive testing, you are obtaining evidences of audit, okay? Whether the audit evidence obtained is accurate, and you're also identifying the potential misstatements or the errors which have occurred, and what are the substitutes for that particular test you can take into consideration. Next, you have secondary procedures. In your secondary procedures, you're understanding the business to deepen your understanding regarding the entity, okay? Only if you understand the business, you will be able to understand what the firm is all about, what the entity is all about, okay? Now, when you have a deeper understanding, you will be able to relate to the business, and also you will be able to solve the audit issues easily. Now, under this, you also have inquiry, okay? Inquiry is used throughout the engagement. Basically, why is the inquiry used is basically you are using this particular inquiry to obtain what is the knowledge of the entity. What is this entity? What is the nature of the entity? What is the size of the entity? What is this entity into? Okay, all of this information you are obtaining. You are obtaining knowledge of the particular entity. You are developing the preliminary audit approach, okay? Preliminary means the beginning. You are developing a audit approach as to how you have to approach towards audit stepwise. Then you have to collect specific evidence. Once you specific evidence, okay, then next you have to corroborate evidence collected by other means. Okay, so when you look into what I've just told you all, first, when you want to conduct an audit engagement, what you have to do is basically when you're conducting an inquiry, you need to obtain knowledge of the entity. After you're obtaining knowledge, you need to develop a preliminary approach. After you develop a preliminary approach, you're collecting specific evidence, okay, to support that particular audit, and you are collecting evidences and you are collaborating all the evidences. Now next, let's move on to inquiry and confirmation, okay. Now, inquiry and confirmation of third party, okay, basically what is happening here is basically it is considering of the knowledge, objectivity, experience, responsibility and qualifications, okay. It is taking into consideration your knowledge, what is your objective, what will be your experience to carry out inquiry, what is the responsibility that is involved in carrying on inquiry, and what are the qualifications of the individual that needs to be interviewed. And also you will be taking into consideration as to how clear you need to be and how what kind of concise questions you need to ask, okay, during the time of inquiry. You should also use open and close questions appropriately, okay, open-ended questions and close-ended questions appropriately. You should also listen actively and effectively during the time of inquiry. You should maintain a skeptical mindset. You should not be deviated. You should be very thoughtful, and you should properly concentrate on how, and you should have it all planned in your mind as to how you're going to carry on the inquiry. You should not get deviated. You should be able to achieve the objective of carrying out that particular inquiry, okay. Now next you have inspection of records and assets, okay, assets. Now as we all know, every organization has financial records as well as assets and liabilities, okay. Now you are going to inspect the documents and records which will provide you various degrees of reliability, okay. When you have records and assets, it will provide you a kind of reliability, because you can, while carrying out the audit, you can actually rely on these documents, okay, on these particular documents, and in case if you have any doubts, you can actually refer back to this particular documents, okay. Inspection of physical assets provides highly reliable evidence of existence and some indication of value. You are actually seeing whether this particular evidence is reliable, whether it is existing, and what is the indication of value, whether it is damaged or whether it is obsolete, okay. Now value here is basically nothing but assets, okay. It is a value to the organization. Your asset, your values could be tangible as well as intangible. Okay, you're seeing whether the assets have been damaged or obsolete, but not necessarily of ownership or value, okay. Next, you have observation. In your observation of the application of a client or entity's policy or procedure, it provides assurance of that procedure at a given point in time. But here, it is not necessary of its performance at other times during the year. Now, observation, when you're observing the client and the entity's policy and what is the procedure they are providing for assurance, okay, at a given point of time. These are the things that you're going to observe. Then next one, you have recalculation. In your recalculation, you're computing or recalculating. So basically here, when you're recalculating the performance, you are getting a high level of assurance, okay? When you're getting a high level of assurance, why do you want high level of assurance? Because you want arithmetical accuracy. You want the information to be accurate. Now lastly, you have reperformance. In your reperformance, basically it is a kind of technique that will be performed manually, okay? Your reperformance will be a technique which will be performed manually or through the use of computer and audit techniques, okay? Basically, you are going to reperform everything in order to be sure. Now next, moving on, you have step 3. That is, you are noting down the following while writing down the audit procedure. You are going to write down the audit procedure clearly, because audit procedure, when you're writing it clearly, because see, when you're writing down the procedure, it should be very precise and clear, because even if the other person is going to see the procedure, he will be able to understand it as to what needs to be done and what is the objective that needs to be achieved during this particular audit. It should be very clear. It should be easily understandable. Okay. Now next one you have is write down the reason for performing the audit. Now you have to also mention what is the reason for you to conduct an audit. Why is it important? What is the reason for performing that particular audit? This has to be mentioned precisely and it should also be made understood, so that it is better and it will make the information more accurate. Okay, people will understand as to why you are conducting the why you're performing a particular audit. What is the necessity of performing the audit? Next one is use of the audit terminology. Now, what is the audit terminology? What is the audit procedure? Prepared. Now, basically here, when you're using the audit terminology, you're going to use the words agree or trace, okay, to match the information of the documents. And also what you're going to do here is basically when you're using audit terminology, it is kind of audit procedure which is prepared, which should hold the right terms. Okay, suppose there are 2 reports. Here you should both the reports should hold the right terms which matches the information and documents. Whatever the information and documents are given to you, whatever audit report you're making, all this audit report as well as the information and documents should match. All the terms used here should match with each other. Okay, in case if it does not matches, it will lead to error. And now moving on to your next, you have test control. Okay,